Hey everyone, welcome back. We're back for the first time in a while. The dream team back at it again. I hope everyone's having a great New Year so far. Oh wow, we've already got quite a few people watching. This is a very happy surprise. Why don't you guys let us know where you're watching from in the comments, and we'll try to give you a little shout out. And as always, I have to do my plug. If you're watching and you like what you see and what you hear, please feel free to subscribe, like the video. It's really a surefire way to make sure that you see all of our fresh, cool content coming out in the next couple of months. So let us know where you're watching from. I'm in London, Nils is in Belgium. I think a lot of people are watching probably from the States as well. And I know my mom's watching, so hi, Mom. So today we're going to be talking about, hey, West End Gallery, favorite. A recent recipient of the WooRank Awards, 2 of them actually. So hi, welcome. So this time, right now, this webinar, we're going to be speaking about the kind of SEO world and what happened last year, just very briefly. And then we're going to go into some things that we think are noteworthy for 2022, what we think is kind of the future of the SEO industry, what you should be paying attention to. Obviously, there's a lot more than what we're going to cover today, but we wanted to take 3 kind of main topics and talk to you about those. Hi from Houston, Houston Eye Associates. Hello. Hello. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get started. I think some more people will probably roll in, but as I said, we have a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. Nils, so we're going to talk right now about 2021 wrap-up. If you have been watching any of our webinars, if you've opened even one of our emails, you know that the big player of the last year was Core Web Vitals, right? So, yeah, go ahead.
No, Core Web Vitals, never heard of that. No, anyway, yeah, that was the talk of town for 2021, I guess. Timeline kind of slips me, but I think around
Because they pushed it back. They pushed it. They like said it was going to be June, and then they pushed it
yeah,
back.
so I think even initially it was May, then pushed
Yeah.
it to June, and then it was kind of a weird thing like, yeah, we're already rolling it out over the next couple of months,
Right.
something along those lines. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, people have been preparing for that update since even the year before, and then it launched. Let's call it around summer. Some people did some impact. I remember having a webinar,
Yeah.
one of our users coming on saying that they heavily invested in Core Web Vitals and making their web pages perform much better and saw a positive result. Obviously, we keep repeating this over and over. You're just not doing it for Google alone. A good page experience is something you do for your users. Google now provides you the tools to measure it, actually in a not almost, like in a scientific way. They give you a bunch of metrics and numbers that you should like threshold values that you should try to improve your website to. They give you the tools to follow along with those. And yeah, if you make sure your website gives users a good page experience, a good experience to visit said page and navigate a page, then they'll obviously see it as a good thing, and then will directly, indirectly give you an edge in the search results.
Right. And the webinar that Nils is talking about is on our channel. This one of our customers actually used kind of the information that we were giving and that Google Search Console was giving to fix his clients' websites and saw just absolutely phenomenal returns. So if you haven't seen that, go watch it. Not right now, though, because we're still talking, but like after. And if you thought we were done with Core Web Vitals, we're not. We're not. So we're going to go ahead and pause that for now, table it. We're going to talk about Core Web Vitals in a little bit in the 2022 spectrum. Okay, so other things that we wanted to just touch on before we get into 2022, because like who really wants to listen to us ramble about what happened in the last year over and over again? Spam update again. A lot of talk about that. Actually, this year, Google did 4 spam updates. I think it was like 1 a quarter they did. So I don't really anticipate anyone here being affected by that. I mean, unless you're a spam website and you know it. Like at that point, you kind of know that you're going to be hit by these algorithm updates. But this is really more about weeding out these malicious intent websites, people who are trying to scam their way into getting your personal information, phishing websites, people who are trying to pass themselves off as something a little bit more reputable than they actually are. I remember when I worked at ABC 11, we had, which is a news station for anyone not watching from America, we had a clone website that was like abc11.co, and they passed themselves off as these like news stories that was just never accurate. So things like that. So 4 updates for that. Oh, there's my mom in the comments. Hey, mom. What's up? And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about Google Search Console, because if you really want to see kind of things that have changed in the last year, the best way to do it is to look into Google Search Console. As Nils will show you, the UI has completely changed, and there's a lot of new things to look at there as well.
Yep. Yep. While I'm sharing my screen, it is this one, I think.
Okay. Yep, there we go.
Yep, there we go.
A little bit.
Yep. So, yeah, I think just looking at Google Search Console, and I mean the UI has changed over the course of last year. I think people still remember the more blocky UI. Now everything got a little more rounded, but obviously that's not the most important thing of it all. But we got a lot of new tools or sections in Google Search Console, and in a way that kind of lifts the cover on what Google thinks is important from a website owner, website maintainer point of view. What they like, the tools they offer to you is obviously what they think is important, or at least have some importance for. To check on when you're like basically maintaining, improving your website. So yeah, like we said, page experience, making sure your users have a good experience. I mean, this is a newish. I mean, this was released last year. Like, this is a super important thing to look at when working on your website. From a technical and a content perspective, obviously, it's a little more technical, but this is important to see how well your website behaves for your users, essentially. Mobile and desktop, obviously. Some sites or businesses or even industries are a little more on the desktop side, I would say. Others will more likely be more on the mobile side. This website, which is one of the websites I maintain for a climbing gym here in Antwerp, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but slightly leaning more towards the mobile side. Like, people want to go climbing, okay, quick, like wherever you are, looking, opening hours on your phone. Obviously, because Corona, subscribing, like filling in a form that you're going, and like actually reserving a time slot. That's a better way to put it. So yeah, this is what I look at. I wouldn't say on a daily, but regularly. And whenever something changes, like if you see a pattern shift somewhere going on, I need to dive in and see what's going on. So page experience, super important. Closely related, obviously, are the core web vitals. Again, split mobile versus desktop. Can go into one over here. Luckily, my site is pretty well optimized. But yeah, if I were to have any issues or warnings, then they'll show up over here. What URLs are something wrong with certain URLs. It will tell me what's wrong, and then I can dive in and try to figure out how to fix that. And then mobile usability, a little bit the same, like and again, like I said, this is a website mostly visited from mobile phones, so this is a super important tab. Also, anything weird going on there, I see there's probably one URL here in vain that I need to have a look at, but overall things seem to be fine. So yeah, this is an entirely new section that was launched over the past year, probably a little bit before that, but it's front and center in Google Search Console. So this tells us, like, Google pays a lot of attention to these metrics. Other than that, kind of jumping around here, but the overview has gone through some slight changes. Same data as before, but everything is, in my opinion, a little better organized now, and actually gives you an overview of everything over here. There is a new sort of UI beta product. No, is it? Yeah, obviously at Google everything is beta. There's a beta flag on top here, but this is more that, like, storytelling mode type of thing, where I think week over week or month over month they'll show you, hey, here's the things that have changed. I gotta say, for this website it's just one card, so it's not that much, but I've seen websites where they show a lot more things, and like I said earlier, you look for patterns. Are certain things changing, yes or no? Is there a spike or a drop in something? Obviously things you need to be aware of, and this kind of highlights those things. So it's their AI working, looking at your metrics, and if there's anything unusual going on, it will be pushed here. So it's kind of a feed of what's going on with your website. And then there's the your general UIs and metrics that have always been part of Google Search Console, just a little nicer now. And also, I think it was, I mean, a year goes by just like that. So, but I'm fairly sure one big change that was, I think people have been requesting for 10 years, was being able to use regular expressions. So maybe more on the technical side of things, but this allows you to not just search for a direct match or a containing match, but you can do way more advanced stuff in looking for certain keywords, certain parts of a URL, group things together. That's, I have to say, it sounds like a small thing, but this changed Google Search Console entirely for me, because now I can really search for things that's going on in my data, whereas before, with just a query containing or an exact query match, you need to have a lot of windows open or pull the data into an Excel sheet or a Google sheet and then run it from there. Like this really changed the game for me, the regular expressions. So definitely check that out if you haven't seen that yet. Again, it's a little bit technical, or a little, like the syntax of a regular expression is a little bit special, and well known to developers or technical people. But it's definitely something to have a look at, and there's plenty of articles explaining these things. It's not that difficult, so it's one of the things I can tell, like, look into this. This will help you make sense of your data. That's
Cool.
that's it on Google Search Console. So we still see things changing. So a lot of effort. I'm happy that finally Google has acknowledged that Google Search Console is like a core and a key tool for every every website owner or everyone working on a website. It was always this thing they had on the back, and this gives you some information about your website, but they're really starting to take it seriously, and that's good for us. some transparency.
We do have a question about GSC just before we move on. Brittany, I'm not going to try your last name. I'm sorry, Brittany. Brittany wants to know where in performance is the query search. Where did you find that?
So the regular expression search is, yeah, I'm in performance over here. So when you want to run a certain query, so let's say I'll write one, and yeah, don't get overwhelmed by the syntax of this. But so it's yeah, they call it custom and then regex. That's a bit weird, I have to say, but anyway. So for instance, this website sort of has a double branding, like they have two names to call themselves, or at least yeah, two kind of teams to call themselves. And that was often not possible. Like you want to search for two brands or two different names or two different things people land on your website for. You had to run an exact query, or a query contains brand one, and then in another screen contains or exact match brand two. Now you can do it in a regular expression. So the one is an abbreviation, BVKB, and then the second one. So what I'm writing now is BVKB is brand one, or that's that. How do you call that? Like it's not a dash; it's a straight line down.
I don't
Courtney?
even know.
Yep.
I don't even know what the name for that is. A breaker.
Let's call it a breaker. Anyway, that's like an or sign. And then the other brand name is Climax. And then you apply that. And you'll see that within this query or within this result, I get everything that mentions both names. So the abbreviation, the climax thing. I'll pan it out here a little bit more. But you see, like, this is a combination of the two. Really helpful. Like, wasn't possible before these custom search queries were a thing. And again, you had to do it in two different screens and then bring everything together. Again, game changer. You can do way more complex things with those regular expressions, but just being able to say this or that is just yeah, it's just one of the simple things you can do with this, and that probably change your workflow a lot when looking into these numbers. Or even like if you have a brand that people often misspell, let's say Climax is with a K, but some people might type it with a C. So like combining all those things together, really difficult beforehand. Now all possible from within the Google search UI.
Cool. Smazit, Power of Knowledge TV, I see your question. We'll take some more general questions kind of at the end of the webinar, but I see you. We will tackle it in a little bit. Okay, so GSC, cool. Lots of changes there. Let's go ahead and take that pin out of the Core Web Vitals conversation we started earlier and start talking about 2022. So as I said, not done with Core Web Vitals. I think at this point, like we're just never going to be done. I feel like that's all we talk about, but it is massive. If you're a WooRank current customer, or if you've joined in the last year, you'll recognize this, which I'm about to show you. So this is something that we added in the last year. This is, hopefully you're familiar with it. If not, head over to woorank.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. This is our assistant, so our on-page assistant, which goes ahead and gives you full reports for your internal pages. So you can see actually your score for each internal page. You can see what needs to be improved, where your errors are. You can get a traffic analysis from the last 30 days. But why the real reason we're here, the Core Web Vitals tab. So this is something we added in the last year. This is going to help you to analyze your own Core Web Vitals. This is actually, I think, a little bit more powerful, at least for local businesses, than GSC is, because we actually don't require that much traffic to gather. I think it's only one site visit, right, Niels, to get the actual.
Yeah, that's true. So the problem right now with Core Web Vital page experience type of data in Google Search Console is that it doesn't, or they don't provide data for smallish type of website, and we never really uncovered the formula, let's say. But I do have a bunch of websites for which I don't have any Core Web Vital data. Reason being is that they source that data from anonymized, whatever that means in Google's eyes, but anonymized data from Chrome browsers out in the field. And so if you have a website that kind of doesn't, like, if you have visitors who are not part of that experiment and push data and metrics into that data set, your page will basically be empty, unfortunately. Well, empty, or some message saying we don't have enough data for your website. And then you're still flying blind, unfortunately. So with our assistant, that's not a problem. The moment one visitor hits your website, we pull in Core Web Vital data and we show it over here. And also we keep historic record of every single page that gets visited, and the Core Web Vital data for those pages. So if something happened yesterday or a week ago, you can see when it happened, and kind of trace back, oh, that's when we launched this, or when we did this particular thing that apparently wasn't good for one of our Core Web Vitals, or all of our Core Web Vitals. So that's another thing that's harder to do with the tools Google is providing you in Google Search Console. So this is a little more advanced and opens up more possibilities to improve your Core Web Vitals.
Yeah, and as always with WooRank, we don't like just like throwing a bunch of data at you and hoping that you know what to do with it. We actually like to contextualize it for you. We like to make sure that you feel confident in making these changes, whether it's handing it over to a developer or making the changes yourself. So I'm going to go ahead, and while Nils starts talking about Core Web Vitals in 2022, I'm going to share in the comments our Core Web Vitals hub. So if for some reason this is the very first time you're hearing about Core Web Vitals, I'm sorry, you're a little behind, but we have all the resources that you need to kind of catch up. So while Nils starts talking about Core Web Vitals 2022, what's coming up, I'll share that in the comments. And if anything is confusing to you, just go ahead and shout out to us in the comments and we'll try to clarify.
Yeah. So a very brief catch up on Core Web Vitals, but we've done numerous webinars in the past year. So just go back to those. We went in so much detail on any Web Vital, but essentially, Google and within their browser world, they have a bunch of metrics called the Web Vitals that look at how fast a page loads, and how fast a page becomes available to the user. So how fast people can click around and scroll around, and so on and so forth. So there's a bunch of Web Vitals, and Google sort of picked out 3 out of those vitals to be the core Web Vitals. So that's CWV, Core Web Vitals, 3 specific metrics. And those look at 3 specific areas of someone experiencing your web page. The first one being how fast does the page load. So you click on a search result, you go to the website, how fast does it load, or you go directly to the web page, doesn't matter. Loading time, that's, I think, pretty clear to everybody what that means, like how fast. And basically the vital or the metric they use is the largest contentful pane. So how long does it take to load the biggest item, often a banner or a video, like a big thing that on the website, so something that takes a lot of screen real estate. How long does it take in milliseconds for that thing to pop up on the screen? As the first Web Vital. Then the second one looks at interactivity. So how quickly become, like, there's when a page is loading and it's in, we're talking milliseconds here, so it's not something you probably obviously notice, but a web page while it's loading isn't always necessarily interactive just yet. Like the links might not be clickable yet, or a button, or certain actions you can take on a website. Things need to load before those actions become available. And so that's the first input delay metric. That is I guess the hardest one to comprehend and do something about. So the interactivity part. And then the third one is stability, or how stable the page is. Very typical example. Do you have a web page where people start scrolling or trying to click, and right at the time a user clicks, a banner pops up, or like, and pushes everything down on the screen? That's something you want to avoid as much as possible. So that's the cumulative layout shift metric that is going to calculate, and we have in our hub a lot of articles with examples on how it actually works, how it actually is being calculated. Just keeping that number as low as possible. The less your page and the items on the page jump around, the better the experience to the end user, because they're seeing something that is stable, and the moment they click on something, like, the better it serves the action they want to perform, the better for your user, for your website.
E-commerce users definitely listen up on that last one, because if you have a site where people can buy something and you don't necessarily have like two-factor authentication when you're buying something, and your content shifts and they buy everything that was in their cart just because something loaded a little bit too slowly, then you're going to have a lot of angry customers on your hands. So
yeah, and I actually have an example in the field myself of Google doing this in a bad way.
Google.
I do have to say, I don't notice it anymore, but there was a time, so either I was in some sort of experiment or it was just something they then fixed later on. But it was when you did like the pogo sticking, we call it in the SEO world. Like, you search for something, you click on a result, you go to that website, and immediately you see, no, this is not what I was looking for, and come back to the search results. So when that happened, I think naturally, at least I do, I want to go to the second result and to see, okay, does that have my answer? But it happened that when you did that pogo sticking, so got back to the search results, that after, it was not immediate, but after a certain amount of, I guess, milliseconds, they kind of popped open the first search result with some, like, there's other pages on this website that might give you the answer. So I tried clicking on the second, and then suddenly the first one pops open with extra links, and you misclick and you go back to that first website.
Wow.
You didn't
See
want to go
how
onto. So
helpful it is to rank
yeah,
number
it was
Google.
really annoying. Like, it annoyed me, but I, like, it's one of those subliminal things, so I haven't noticed it anymore recently, so it's probably fixed now. But again, these are the kind of things you want to avoid as much as possible. Like, the moment someone is going to click on something, don't start pushing things around. So again, stability is key. Anyway, so I said to be brief. It's still a quite long explanation, but anyway, so core web vitals aren't going away. It's, at the same time, it's not like this is the silver bullet. Like, people might expect, okay, we spend so much time on shaving off a few extra milliseconds for our page to load. Yes, that has an impact, but it's not going to kick you to position one in every search result. Obviously, it's still part of the big algorithm that Google runs on every search query. So it helps somewhat, but it's not the result to everything. So then again, it is important. So keep going at it. And yeah, more and more information gets out on core web vitals. I think if it's not already the case, desktop.
Right.
Yeah.
February.
In February, I guess you read more about this because
I said it.
yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I think you and I are probably going to do a webinar about this next month. I don't want to like use up all of our bandwidth here talking about Core Web Vitals. But yeah, they announced quite a while ago, actually, that as of February 2022, CWV will be a ranking signal on desktop. So it already is kind of a ranking signal on mobile, but in desktop, it's also going to become starting next month. So yeah, if you haven't heard us harping about it over the last year, like it's going to be pretty much all encompassing a ranking signal, regardless of device, starting
Yep.
next month. So
And yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. Like it's not something, okay, we fixed our core web vitals onto the next thing. No,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
maybe tomorrow you install some sort of plugin or you make some change, and suddenly, your visual stability on your website goes down. Like you need to constantly monitor these things.
yeah. And we're not
Um,
perfect. I mean, even at WooRank, like we had some core web vitals issues a few weeks ago that we had to
yep,
address. So I mean, it happens. Like it happens even on old pages that you might not be aware of. So
yep,
it's
correct.
important to take a look at. Should we wrap up CWV and move on to the
Yeah,
next one?
yeah.
We've got about a half hour left, and thank you everyone for everyone sticking around. So it must be spitting truth here. So next thing that we're going to talk about, image search. So yeah, image search, pretty big. We saw starting to become pretty big in 2021, but 2022 for sure. I think I read somewhere that there's like 600 million image searches for just Pinterest alone in any given period of time. I think it's like any given month, 600 million image searches or something, which is crazy. So yeah, go ahead. You know more about
Yeah,
it.
no, I think, and that's probably something people, or people from our space, SEO space, have been saying for many years. Like this is the year of visual search. Like every year ongoing will be the year of visual search. Because I mean, we are humans. We do want to look at nice things. So yeah, images and searching by image is becoming bigger and bigger every year. So whereas I would say historically SEO is often about content, or textual written content, and how to improve that, and links and backlinks and stuff like that. And images is one of those. It's also important things on the side, but I think it kind of gets more important as we go, where it was just one of the things we have in our arsenal to improve. I think the more and more we go forward, and again, this will differ for different type of industries, or types of websites you have, or brands, or whatever your brand does. Some things are just way more visual than others. Um, but yeah, people are generally very visual, when I mean, when we look at things, when we talk about things. um, and I guess, like you said, Pinterest keeps on growing. um, Google Lens, so their tool to make a picture with your mobile phone of basically anything, and then kick it back to Google, getting information about that thing. Like it might recognize that. Typical example, in a museum, you take a picture of a piece of art with Google Lens, and then it will tell you what that piece of art is, the artist, etc., etc. Very
I also
typical.
read that you could like find if you're lost or something, you could take a picture of your surroundings. A Google Lens will tell you where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
You don't have Google
like,
Maps for some reason. If you have Google Lens and not Google Maps, you can
yeah,
use it that
their
way.
their data set of things, visual things, is also growing. Like they've always been very good at text, obviously, and making the web searchable. But also with images, they've been doing this for years, and it gets better and better every day. So yeah, spending time on the images on your website, and annotating them correctly. I mean, this is not new. This has been 10-year, 15-year-old type of SEO, but it becomes more and more important. Like any image you see on your browser, I don't think we can screen, or I can show that in a screen share, because it's probably not gonna show a pop-up like that. But when you right click on an image, in Chrome at least, one of the main actions in the pop-up window that you get is search this image through Google, like a reverse image search, basically, through Google search. and then you get information about that picture, related things that look alike, stuff like that. So I, for one, I mean, Corona, so people pick up new hobbies. So I was working on a new retro game cabinet. Like you find one, you do a reverse Google image search, you get a lot of related things back. So it kind of feeds your imagination for new ideas, and yeah, basically you go on a tangent of kind of refeeding it and researching it in Google image search. So yeah, very anecdotal, but images are like super important, with and with a growing importance. It's something personally I haven't neglected. Like, okay, yeah, I'll make sure my images have an alt attribute and stuff like that. But now I even start thinking, okay, my images shouldn't just pick something random from any website. Like I need to think about good imagery for articles, like not just, okay, we need something visual to make this article look a bit nicer visually. No, like it people will search for these things probably through a visual search. So you
Absolutely.
need to be more aware of what images you put on an article and where, and yeah, how good they look and how well they fit your narrative of your piece of content. So
And every search engine has like an equivalent to Google image search. They have, I mean, Bing has one, Yahoo has one.
mhm.
You can really use it anywhere. And it's not just the image tab that uses it either. Like the shopping tab is using those images for your products, if you're e-commerce. So there's a lot of places that you can run into this.
Yeah,
Pinterest,
indeed. And do any
so.
do any search query in Google these days, and probably, I mean, very likely the top results are either images through shopping or through literal image Google images, or thumbnails from videos. Like it's the search results themselves have become way more visual than they ever were. So yeah, it is important.
Mhm. Anecdotally, also, I think it's a I typically use reverse image search on like eBay as well. So if you feel like someone might be scamming you or selling something that they might not actually have, if the price is too good to be true, you can actually take that product listing, reverse image search, and then like boom, this is a picture of a Peloton from Pexels or something like.
Oh yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so you can see if this is just a stock photo, and like obviously they're not selling the real thing. So that's another just anecdotal way that I personally use it.
Yep. So yeah, important. And again, yeah, it's probably a topic for a webinar on its own on how
Mm.
to improve for images. But yeah, there's new yeah, improved data formats. Like we have JPEG and PNG and GIF. But yeah, in the more recent years, there's even better WebP and stuff like that. So that's a way to look at things. Just purely optimize your image format, but then
We
also
actually
how
just
to
got a
optimize.
really relevant question if you want me to pop it up on the screen. So Maximilian said that he's seeing more and more often that you should use next gen formats. So how important is this? And are formats like WebP or JPEG 2000 are becoming a standard?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on these things specifically, or image search or image improvements per se, but WebP is definitely one of the persisting new formats. That's for sure. But just like we in the yeah today and in the earlier days, we had JPEG, we had PNG, we had GIF. Like there's many different flavors, let's say. The same applies here. So WebP, JPEG 2000. But I would say, like, I read more about WebP, to be honest, and that's also spoken as a developer. So that's definitely one to stay. But I guess, yeah, Google, Apple, they all invest in making a good looking picture, yeah, be very well optimized, and load for the web. So yeah, it's definitely pays off to spend time to optimize your images, and use these new formats, especially when image search is important for your business or your website.
And just a quick marketing plug, you can actually, one of our new criteria in the WooRank review will actually analyze all of the images on the page that you're reviewing. So we'll be able to tell if your dimensions are properly, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not told, if declared, like if you're declaring your dimensions correctly, if you're using next gen image formatting, if you're if they're responsive. Like we do a series, I think, of 5 checks on all of the images on the page that you're reviewing. So if you're curious if your images are meeting these requirements, then you could just run a review on WooRank.
Yep.
Marketing plug done. So did you want to talk more about image search, or do you want to move into video search?
No, I think it's a good segue to video.
Go for it. Okay, so video search. Also
Yeah,
another.
I think the same applies. Well, same or similar things apply to video search. It's also something that we've known for years. But if you look, I don't really know the timelines on when these things launch. But where you used to, I mean, videos have been part of search results for a long time now. But in the more recent years, Google even goes into looking into bits of a video, like you search for something. I think you had an example earlier
Yeah, I
on
can share it
a
actually.
tire change, like
Let me
maybe
share it.
it's a 10-minute video because that's what YouTube or people consuming content on YouTube look at. 10-minute videos, 15-minute, 20-minute, but maybe you need one specific bit of that process of changing a tire or doing some DIY stuff, so they kind of nicely cut it out for you, and show where your specific question about the entire process is that, and you can click through to that segment alone. I think, again, if you're if I guess, in a way, probably every type of business could kind of use the video platform, like can create video content, some more than others, but it definitely pays off to look into what type of, or if you can make videos about what it is that you're doing, um, and then bring it probably to YouTube. I mean, there are alternatives, but I think YouTube kind of owns this space. Make sure you have things captioned. So in minutes, in this case, minute 114, we're talking about this and that. So do that. Add captions. And Google already does that out of the box. So they kind of transcribe your video and what's being said during the video. It's good, not perfect. But when they've done that, you can pull down that file of everything they transcribed, and then manually still make changes to kind of rewrite words they heard differently, or sometimes you have these funny things going on. But anyway, there's a way to edit these things out, re-upload them. Because although there's not much known about this, but I assume Google is smart enough to kind of like have their AIs look at videos and pull things out. But I think if you help them by uploading captions, or doing kind of the 2-tap thing, like you let YouTube do it for you, download it, edit a little bit, or edit the weird things out, re-upload it, you'll definitely help them out in understanding what your video is about and what's being said. Good titles, good descriptions, good thumbnails, because that's what we're seeing over here. I don't know, it's actually a good experiment. Like the thumbnails they're showing over here, is that the actual video thumbnail, or does that take a picture from, or like a frame from the like we said, the section or the segment in the video you're talking about? I don't know. It's something to check out. But definitely having good thumbnails is very important. Again, that visual aspect. I mean, this is a perfect example how to change a tire, and I guess how far do you have to scroll to not see anything visual. It's yeah, it's just so visual.
Yeah, we've
There
got
we
the
go. Like
guide here, we've
no,
got cartoon illustrations, infographics, like,
no,
and then related searches. You can see the related searches all have play buttons, every single
no.
one. So,
Yeah, it's crazy, and again, yeah, like SEO is all about trying to be first on Google search results, but what does that even mean anymore? Like like
mhm.
it's probably like pushing out a good video about a topic as is way more likely to go on top in Google search results uh, than um, than an article. Again, depends on the type of content, obviously, and how well it fits the video narrative versus written content. But
Right, because
uh,
obviously people who are searching how to change a tire probably pretty urgently need this information, like, how to do a coronary bypass. Like, it's
yeah,
people who need to know that information in the moment, so this is definitely very helpful.
yeah, and I see a question popping up from Edward. Maybe you can
Go ahead and put
kick it
that
in the
on
screen.
screen. Yep.
So we produce a lot of videos that have music with text overlay, no voiceover. Is it important to upload transcripts for these types of videos? I think the answer is yes, full sounding yes, because again, they like their bots and crazy AI will probably look at your videos and somehow discover text on them, but I think maybe I'm overestimating them. And I guess if you yeah, if you add the transcription to the videos, that will definitely help understanding what it's all about.
I think also not to mention, like, we say this again and again and again, but your kind of SEO purposes and your digital marketing is not just for Google, it's for your users. And if your user has a visual impairment and they actually use like screen
Mhm.
readers aren't going to catch the text overlay. They're not going
Yep.
to run from that. They're going to go from the transcript. So it's
Yep.
also just makes it more accessible for everybody that's trying to access your content.
Yeah, or in some apps they can increase the font size or change it, change the color of it, etc., etc. Whereas yeah, a baked-in piece of text is what it is, and if
Mhm.
it's maybe someone's colorblind and has trouble reading the contrast, so it's definitely going to help to kind of have your captions go along with the text that you're showing on screen.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm.
Edward says thank you. Looking for an answer for this question for a while. Oh, happy to be of service, Edward. Happy to be of service. Is there anything else you wanted to add about video search?
No.
No?
Again, yeah, but this is a topic for webinars on its own, obviously. But yeah, I think it's good to kind of just muse about, like, for your business or website, like video content. If I am not doing it yet, would it make sense to do it? And this is a good example. Like, it doesn't have to be you talking in front of a camera. Like, it can be yeah, like a video with text overlays. Like, nobody has to speak because maybe you're not comfortable talking to a camera or doing a voiceover. Or I mean, it's probably personal, but these days I see a lot of videos, and I really enjoy them, explainer videos that probably use stock videos, like those websites you can pull videos on a certain, yeah,
Mhm.
topic, or from a certain city, or just like you have stock photos, stock videos, kind of all put together, but then a voiceover explaining a lot of things, basically reading out a textual piece of content, and then those stock video pieces kind of go along with what they're saying. But it's not owned or content they filmed themselves. It's written, then voice overed or read out loud, and then accompanied by some videos that kind of make sense within that context. So that's a thing. Yeah, so video, I mean, there's lots of ways to do video.
Yeah, don't let the lack of, Yeti mic and ring light and all that stop you from actually making some video content for your site, because it can only help, really. It can only help.
Yep.
Okay, so a few more things I just wanted to touch on. I was going to spend a little bit more time on this, but I actually don't think we really have time, because I do want to take one more question.
Mm-hmm.
What we were going to talk about, things that we couldn't cover that we wanted to cover, but we'll probably talk about in some subsequent webinars. One, Google passage ranking. So that's really talking about how Google can now rank individual parts of your website. This is a really, really interesting one, and one that we hope to touch on in some more webinars. So definitely, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now, because we are going to talk about these later. I think what we've really talked about a lot, without so much saying it, is that Google really wants people to stay on Google lately. Like, it's really, I mean, we've noticed a pretty obvious shift over the last 12 months even. You can even see by the, excuse me, by the Google results that I just showed you with how to change a tire. There's like drop down menus. There's a list of steps that you can actually just expand without leaving Google. There's the videos that you can play. There's the infographics that you can just expand while staying on Google. So there's a lot of talk about that, how to mitigate that. Is it actually impacting our click-through rate? So that's another really good one that we will probably talk about in the future. And then finally, search intent. So search intent is a huge part of SEO at this point. Actually, just for everyone to mark your calendars, I will be doing a webinar with Search Engine Journal on March 2nd at, I want to say it's like 7 p.m. my time. I think it's 2 p.m. New York. And we're going to be talking all about search intent. So how to write content to actually match what people are looking for and make sure that your content is being shown to the right people at the right time. What that means for you, I know we've talked about in the past, but Google Analytics 4, Nils, if you want to just touch on that quickly, like they're looking more at user behavior and how people are actually interacting with your site, more so than just those kind of standard vanity metrics of like page views or bounce rate.
Yep. So yeah, Google Analytics 4 also launched, I guess, 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. But recently, so there's Google Analytics 4, which is the new version of Google Analytics, versus Universal Analytics is the old analytics, which still most of the websites are still using because they had it installed once, and are still using that. So there's a big shift between those two versions, from Universal, so old analytics, very page view, page by page way of looking at metrics and pulling in metrics like time on a page, bounce rate. Like it's very page specific, page by page by page. Bit of an oldish way of thinking about the internet, obviously. Yeah, to a certain extent, you can say, did it take them this long to go to a new version of Google Analytics? But anyway, old habits die hard. I have to say myself, like you're so used to the way Google Analytics work that this new or moving to a new mindset, new way of thinking about things it's not easy. It's not easy. Like it's second nature, and then suddenly you have to change everything. But so Google Analytics 4. It's in the same suite, obviously. So it's a new type of script you install on your website. I think today, if you create a new Google Analytics property for a new website or whatever, the only thing you can create is Google Analytics 4. So there used to be a crossover period where you can install both. Now it's Google Analytics 4 only. The shift there goes more to entire looks more at the user, not at the page view, but at a user and what's the user doing across your website. So it's not like, oh, X amount of users goes to this page and then the rest, or this percentage of those users then goes to this page. No, it's like, what are users doing in general? So it kind of shifts the lens, the camera to the user and not to the web page. So it's a new way of thinking. Makes more sense in current day internet. Like you go to a website and you're throughout your session you do a lot of things. Like on a e-commerce store, you do your research on certain products, you make your decision, add them to your cart, check out your cart, etc., etc. So it will look more towards and the way of querying your data and looking at your metrics takes more the approach of what, yeah, the average user on your website, what do they do? Like what is the process they go through? Do they spend a lot of time on product pages? Do they spend a lot of time on your blog, things like that? So it's not. I mean, you can still find page specific metrics and how many page views a certain page has, but you already got to look a bit more deeply now, like where that used to be the way of looking at your data. Now it's more about how many users are adding things to their carts. So it's more event driven, I would say. How many people check out carts? What did they do before? Like, is our blog getting people to check things or add things to their cart more than our, I don't know, homepage or a specific other page on our website or a specific other section? So it's a little different. And the reason we bring it up is that Google is pushing Google Analytics 4 more and more front and center for new websites, and then pushing people towards that. From a vendor point of view, so WooRank as an example, it's a little more scary because there are, I mean, it took a long time for them to even push out APIs to build then software like WooRank on top of that. So there are APIs, but they're still in a, I don't know how they call it, preview. It's not beta, but it's some of those things. Like it's still like, if something's wrong, it's not our fault type of stage. So it's a little difficult from a vendor point of
How I
view.
live my life.
But to implement these new type of properties into our software, but we're working on it among other vendors in our space. So yeah, if you haven't yet, I would definitely recommend to install a Google Analytics 4 property alongside Universal Analytics if you haven't done so yet. And if you have new websites, you won't even have the choice. You'll have to adapt to Google Analytics 4. So yeah, also something I foresee that in 2022 will be a big shift. Google will push people in version 4 now.
Yeah. And it's, it's Google's world. We're all just living in it. So get
Yep.
on board or stop doing SEO, I guess. We do have a question that I promised I would get back to earlier in the webinar. So this is from Smaz at Power of Knowledge TV. Hello, WooRank. Is it better to create a new business listing for a second location versus adding it to an existing listing? I'm worried about suspensions that I'm seeing going on. Nils, do you know anything about kind of local business?
I'm not super well versed in this space, but I would say if it's in terms of like a franchise type of business, I would definitely keep it together under under one business, and then having a different location.
Yeah.
If the two, yeah, it's very hard to. I mean, there's no
It
silver
says
bullet
here.
solution here. It might in for your specific. I think it's better to reach out with that question and be more specific about the brandings. To I don't know, like, do we let people email us or something like that so we can look into the specifics? Because whatever I'm gonna say here might work really well or might be horrible for your specific use case.
I did find
But I would
something.
say in general, if it's all under the same brand, I would keep it within that business. If it's, let's say, a restaurant you own and you own another restaurant in another city, and other than you, the owner, being the umbrella thing, if they don't have anything in common, then I would separate them out. So but again, yeah, it's dangerous for me to give a generalized answer here, because it might go wrong for your specific use case.
I did find a support article that I just shared in the comments. You just need to change your settings to being a group business rather than a single solitary business. And there is a setting where you can actually add locations in in your GMB profile. So I hope that helps. Like, definitely read through it, but I think that's kind of what you were asking. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, if I had $1 for every time we said Google on these webinars, I would not have to do these webinars anymore.
Yeah.
But if you just Google it, usually you'll find the right answer. And then finally, last question, I think that's all we really have time for. Is SEO favorite accessibility feature on websites? I think the way I'm understanding this question is should you be focusing on accessibility on your websites? And the answer is
Well,
yes.
yeah, I mean, it's a good one to end the webinar because I can say the exact same thing we started with. Like everything in SEO, whatever you do, be it content, video, images, core web vitals, you do it for your users. And obviously, having an accessible website for everybody, be it people who have visual impairment or another disability, it's super important to give a good experience to everybody. So is accessibility important for SEO? Yes, because you want every user to have a good experience on your website, and Google will see that too. And if people have a good experience on your website, they'll give your website an edge in the search results. So yes, it's important.
So if we didn't get to your question, or if you were too shy to ask a question in the comments during a live webinar, totally fine. No shame in that. I just put my email address into the comments. So if you have another question that we didn't get to cover, or if you just want some clarification on something we talked about, just go ahead and shoot me an email and I will get back to you tomorrow, because now it's time for me to clock out. So everyone, thank you so much for watching. It was really good to be back and chatting with you. And Nils, thank you as always for your expertise.
My pleasure.
Right. We'll talk to you next month. We'll be back. We'll be talking about, surprise, surprise, Core Web Vitals. And we'll talk to you then. So be on the lookout for our emails. And if you're not on our email list, just go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can get some email alerts or alerts that we're going live. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.